To Voice Notes from a Slow Life. My name is Emily, and I'm glad you're here. This is a podcast all about slowing down, mothering the way that you want to mother, and living a more intentional life. Let's begin. So, first off, long time no talk. I've been busy, but today I really want to talk about something that comes up a lot in the work that I do with clients. So, if you're new here, I am a therapist in private practice, and I work with moms who are experiencing burnout. So, mom burnout. And I want to talk about a theme. So, I call that a therapeutic theme that comes up a lot in the work that I do. So something that I talk a lot with clients, and this is with the mothers that I work with, but also with women in general, usually women who are overachievers, who maybe are the firstborn daughters. And it's something I like to call the Gilmore Girl Effect. It is not trademark name. It's not really like uh, fancy or anything. This is just something that I kind of just naturally started calling it in the work I was doing with clients. And then when I taught a youth and family counseling course in March, I also started kind of like calling it that. And it really resonated with the students. So it's what I'm calling it, the Gilmore Girl Effect. And I'm going to give you a bit of context about Gilmore Girls in general, in case you're not familiar with it. Maybe you are not a millennial and you don't know what this show is, or you don't remember quite what it's about. I'm going to talk about how it presents in the therapy work that I do with clients, and then how recognizing this is actually really powerful for us. So, this is a podcast episode that's going to be really meaningful for you if you are somebody who has lived the Gilmore Girl effect when you were younger, if it's kind of infiltrating your life now, or if you're a therapist working in private practice or in a group practice or wherever, and you're meeting with women who might be experiencing this. So, the Girl effect, just so you have an idea, we're going to talk about the relationship between a mother and her daughter and the parentification that happens and the pressure that's put on children. So let's start off by talking about Gilmore Girls, the quintessential TV show from my childhood that I absolutely loved. I loved the Gilmore Girls TV show. And so the backstory of the Gilmore Girls TV show is that Lorelai Gilmore gets pregnant at age 16 and runs away from home and has a child that she names Lorelai, whose name, like her nickname is Rory. And so she raises her daughter by herself. In the show, the first season, we're introduced to Rory and Lorelai when Rory is 16, so the same age that her mom was when she got pregnant. And Lorelai is now 32, 32, 33. So the current age that I am now. So we're meeting them as Lorelai is an adult and her daughter is 16. And the whole story, it's very like sitcom-y, but romantic comedy. So it revolves around these Gilmore girls, Lorelai and Rory, and you are taken into their lives. So their struggles academically, with work, their relationships, and the bond that they have together as mother and daughter. And in the show, it is super, I guess it would be like praised, their relationships. Like they're very close. Like they are not mother and daughter. They are like best friends. They kind of share everything. There's no secrets between them. And the mother is, shares all of her own fears and issues with her daughter. And when I was watching this as a child, I think anybody else was watching it when they were younger, they thought it was so cool. Like a cool 32-year-old mom to a teenager who's like kind of just like treats her kid like a little adult. And it was, something that we think we all kind of aspired to, we all kind of really, really resonated with. But then when you become an adult yourself, so now I'm at the age, I'm 32 going on, wait, am I 32 or 33? I think I'm 33 going on 34. I keep forgetting. Anyway, I'm about the age that Lorelai was in the show. And so you look back at it now and you're like, damn, that is not a very healthy mother-daughter relationship. And it's something that is actually quite toxic when you really stop to think about it. So what happens in Gilmore Girls and what I see in my clients is that oftentimes the relationship between the mother, usually it's the mother and the daughter, is a bit too close in that, again, like they're more like friends rather than mother and daughter. And so what happens is the mother turns to the daughter as a social support system, right? So the daughter becomes her support system, her emotional caregiver in another way. So, in the show, the mother will tell the daughter about her romantic difficulties, how it's not working out with different people in her life and why it didn't work out. And the daughter will, console the mother. The mother will also speak about her strained relationship with her own mother, so the daughter's grandmother. And again, the daughter feels like she has to pick sides, like she has to support her mother. And what happens is that Rory in the TV show, she becomes very parentified, meaning that she takes on a caregiver role for her mother. So sometimes that can be emotionally, like what she's doing, where she is supporting her emotionally by like being there for her, being a shoulder to cry on, an ear to listen to her issues. And sometimes it can be in other ways as well. So maybe taking on certain responsibilities of the home that are actually supposed to be the mother's. So that becomes like a parentification. So where a child is really put into a parental role by who should be the person who should be the parental figure, right? And we think about in terms of different relationships in families. There's different kinds. Like there's a strict boundaries. There's different kind of boundaries. This one's really more of a porous boundary, meaning that the boundary is super duper blurred. There is kind no boundary at all, and it becomes really enmeshed. And so they are super connected to each other. You kind of lose your self-identity and you become the Gilmore Girls. You're not just Rory and Lorelai, but you're the Gilmore Girls, right? So we just the boundaries are so far gone. And of course that is not healthy at all. And so when I think about like porous boundaries or diffused boundaries, right? How they kind of like define it is overly loose and unclear, causing enmeshment where people lose their personal identity and feel responsible for others' feelings, right? So what I see then in the clients that I work with, they are not Gilmore Girls, but they take on a lot of the same similarities. So what you'll have often is a mother going to the daughter. Like let's think about the past. Like let's think about what I typically see. So mother being in her 30s or 40s with a young daughter, and honestly, it could be 12 to 16. Oftentimes is what I often see in terms of this dynamic. Um, where the mother is turning to the daughter for emotional support. So she'll be maybe complaining about or worrying about finances and kind of sharing that with the daughter. She might even complain about her relationship with her husband, who is the daughter's father. All the things that you might typically speak to a friend about, they will speak to their child about. And then the child will be there to hold that space, to support the mother, to really appease her mother. Might even work as mediation between the mother and the father, might mediate between the mother and her siblings, and really just takes on the role of parent for her mother. Where at the time you're like, oh, it's pretty cool. Like I'm like a friend. Like my mom talks to me like the way she would talk to a friend. But that's not quite what it is because it's much deeper than that. And what happens then is that for a lot of the women that I work with, when they look back at this time in their life, they also have a fear of not burdening their mother with their own issues. So they'll often not go to their mother with any issues that they have, especially if any of the issues are related to the mother. So if they are feeling strain in their own relationship with their mother, or they're upset with their mother, or anything like that, either they'll try and talk to their mother about it, and the mother will have a breakdown, and they'll have a fight, and then the daughter usually has to repair the situation, Or she'll have learned that it is not a safe space. My mother is not adequately equipped to manage my emotions and will hold it in. And so what happens is that you have women who grow up to be, caregivers for everybody else and to forget themselves. And they might also, continuously do this with different relationships in their lives. And again, I'm saying about the emotional impact, but it can also be in different ways too. So maybe they are put more in a caregiving role even at a young age, taking care of their siblings. That one comes up quite a lot. So if they have siblings to take care of, maybe they even financially contribute to the household. Maybe they, it's they do more in the household, not exactly like chores. Like I wouldn't be like, okay, chores, yeah, we get it. You do chores, but this is a bit more than chores. It would be things that you wouldn't expect a child to be taking on. It might be even further, like let's say the child will take on care responsibility of changing diapers for their siblings while also making the supper every night. Like it's a bit more than. And what happens is like a lot of the times these individuals, they lose a lot of their childhood and they get put in mothering roles at a very young age. And when they get older, oftentimes they're still in that role with their parents, right? Even when they're older, like let's say by the time they're 30s, right? Like just like Lorelai, when they're in their 30s, they're still caring for their adult parents in terms of their emotions. So checking in on them, still managing their emotions, supporting them, doing everything that they can do. But then it also maybe bleeds into their relationship with their partner, where they're giving more than they're receiving. It might bleed into their relationships with their friends. And then what happens too is once they have their own children, a couple of things might occur. So, one thing that might occur is this deep dread of doing the same thing to their child. So, they're so afraid of replaying the same patterns with their child that they, have difficulty managing those relationships. And they're not sure, they're always worried that they might be making their child feel maybe the way that they felt. The other thing that comes up is they're exhausted. They want children and they have their children, but they're exhausted. And the reason why they're so exhausted and that parenting becomes difficult is because they've been made to be a parent from a very young age. And so their experience of motherhood doesn't simply start when they have the baby or when they adopt a baby. It started when they were young and caring for their own mother and their own siblings and all of that. And so they are already depleted, right? That overachiever burnout kind of thing by the time they become mothers themselves. And this is something I see quite a bit. That's why, like, to the point where that's why I started calling it the Gilmore Girl effect. I'm like, this is like, I was like, this is, when something comes up too often that you just start naming it things. I don't know if it's like a millennial thing, but like, I was like, this is just so Gilmore Girl. And I think it's really important to note this because sometimes when we don't realize that something is maybe not right, we normalize it, right? And so like just the way that we watched that TV show and went, oh, like that's pretty cool. It's a cool relationship. I wish my relationship with my mom was like that or whatever. At the same time, if you're in it, you kind of just think that that's normal. And so when you get tired, when you become an adult, and because you're caring for not only your child at this point, but your relationship with your partner and probably your older parents, you're exhausted, you're depleted, and you go and think, something's wrong with me. Well, nothing's wrong with you. Okay? It's just that you've been working excessively hard for everybody else since you were a child. And I named the ages of 12 to 16 just because like those are the ages that I tend to have clients remember certain instances from, but it can start even younger than that. And so you might resonate with this because this might be something that you experienced in your childhood. And so some things that, again, might have happened to you or to the clients that you work with as a therapist is that you might have clients or you might have experienced your mother coming to you and describing the difficulties that she's having with your father and disclosing to you that she would love to have a divorce, but it's really difficult. She doesn't know what to do. She doesn't want to be with your father. She might even disclose that she's not sexually attracted to your father anymore and she doesn't want to have sex with them. She might disclose these kinds of things. Or if she's separated, she might disclose, who she's dating, what that's like. Very much oversharing with a child, right? Because that's what you were. You were a child. I'm going to say that again. You were a child. And when you are young, you don't see that as much. You're just like, oh, I'm mature for my age, right? You think that. And I remember being like 16 and being like, I'm so mature for my age. I know so much. And then you become older and you realize, like, I was a child. Like I've learned so much more. But that was too heavy. You might realize that like that was too heavy. And that's what the clients tell me. It's like that was too much. That was too heavy for me to carry. And it's important for our clients and for you to recognize this because I feel like when we put language to an experience, we can better understand it. We can better understand where the difficulties come from. Because if not, we tend to internalize it and think that, like I couldn't handle something, I'm the issue. But when you recognize that this is kind of something that was like placed upon you and that impacted you and to no fault of your own, it's a different experience. And I say to no fault of your own because I don't want you to also say, well, I wanted my mother to tell me these things. I asked her to disclose these things. I wanted to be there. And so like I'm somewhat at fault too. To that I say no, because again, you were a child and it is up to the adult in the relationship to manage that. And so like think about yourself right now. Maybe you're in your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, your 50s. I'm not sure. Take stock of where you are right now and imagine discussing current life events that you're going through, whether that be difficulties at work, with money, with your relationship, and disclosing that to a 15-year-old. Now, imagine a 15-year-old. What kind of difficulties are 15-year-olds going through? They're going through hormonal changes. They're going through their own relationship issues. They're learning who they are, their identities. School's really heavy. It is heavy when you're fucking 15 years old. It's a lot. And you're going to go and disclose these things to to this 15-year-old? No, you're not. You're not because you probably recognize that that is not an appropriate discussion to have with a child. And you would instead turn to your partner, your friend, somebody else. And it even goes to the point that like, maybe you're like, well, now I'm an adult. And so I'm an adult, my parents are an adult. And so it's normal now that we're closer and we can discuss these things. And I agree to a point because not everything needs to be discussed or should be discussed. Because in any case, you're still their child, right? And so it becomes a lot when you're managing your own parents' issues and emotions while also trying to manage all of your own family things, your own personal things. And so boundaries are okay and healthy, even when you are adult, and especially when you're an adult. Like, I mean, there's a whole book. I don't have it here. I lent it to a friend, but a book, adult children of emotionally immature parents, right? And so there's like this thing that happens when we become adults where it's different because you're an adult now, but it's still not healthy, right? And I'm not saying this in a way of like we shouldn't tell anything to our kids. We should keep our kids in the dark. Like that is not what I'm saying. In a lot of cases, that's not possible. So if you live in a household where maybe you're having struggles with income, you might have to have discussions about, no, we can't buy this thing, I don't know, money wise or whatever. Like, you might have certain discussions about like, okay, we're separating me and your father. Those discussions do happen, and there's a way of doing them in a very, healthy and controlled way. The issue becomes when we're going overboard. And so you can say, your father and I have divorced, and but we still love you and we're going to care for you, but we're not going to live in the same household anymore. And they might ask why. It's like, we're just not, we work better when we're apart than when we're together, whatever. But you don't need to say all of the different reasons of why, right? You don't need to say because he said this and because I said that. And then you won't believe what your father did. And then you don't need to do those things because it's not actually healthy to that relationship, right? And that is not just keeping a child in the loop, that is utilizing that child as a support system, right? We should turn to adults when we need that. So that is kind of, so it's not about like not that kids shouldn't do anything, shouldn't do chores, shouldn't know about what's going on in the household. That's not it. It's that there are some things that they don't need to know. And that's kind of the thing that like when we're therapists in general, like when we do like self-disclosures, for instance, with clients of like disclosing things about our personal lives, we don't just tell our clients everything. We kind of assess to think, is this in the client's best interest? Is it necessary? And that's the same thing that we should do with our children is sharing this in the child's best interest, and is sharing this necessary? And a lot of times it's not. And I know like this is like a theme, right? Because it's just something that was very prominent in, well, I work a lot with millennial women, and it's just like a very millennial daughter and parent experience. And most of the clients that I see now, one, they're working through this experience to then understand it better, understand themselves better, get some self-compassion, and then also like set in healthy boundaries to protect themselves. But it's also because they're often walking a line. So, especially if I work with a mother who has a teenage daughter, it's walking the line between wanting to have that connection and maybe friendship with your child, while also not, you know, over disclosing to your child. And it's a fine line when you don't have experience with boundaries in adult in parent child relationships. It's a very difficult concept when you're not used to it. So some of my clients will come to me and be like, okay, we'll work on maybe how they're communicating with their children, what they're sharing, what they're not sharing, what this could look like, issues that come up and addressing them. So, but all of this can only happen after you recognize what's happened in the past. Okay, so I'm a very psychodynamic therapist. Like that past piece does have quite a bit of importance to the work you will do in order to heal. And I think that when we can name it and we can recognize that it was not maybe healthy and it was outside of our control and it's not our fault, it can remove a lot of guilt and shame that we might have, right? Because sometimes we might have that guilt and shame of not being able to support enough, not being able to help enough, not having the right things to say. Or we might feel guilt and shame because we're somewhat resentful of that parent for kind of placing those adult issues on us at such a young age. We might have bitterness and resentfulness, and we might feel bad about that because our parent was really there for us, and it's the least that we could do. But that is not our role, right? We were children, right? That's why I keep telling my clients, you were a child. The clients I work with were children, okay? Um, and because I love, so that's why, as I'm gonna say, so like this is like the Gilmore Girl effect. Like, are you seeing now what I'm saying in terms of like if you've watched Gilmore Girls and their dynamic, it's very similar to what we're seeing in terms of that mother-daughter relationship in the clientele I see, those who are experiencing mom burnout or who are often overachievers. Oftentimes, again, the oldest daughter. Those are the kind of things that I see quite a bit. Now, because I love a good example or a metaphor or whatever, and I love pop culture and I'm a millennial, I want to kind of discuss a opposite to that. I don't know if I'm gonna say opposite, but like another pop culture moment that really comes to mind to me when I think about this Gilmore Girl effect. And it's what I'm gonna call the, I don't know, the Lizzie McGuire conundrum. I don't know. I did not think that went through. I was just thinking about it because there's this episode. Do you know Lizzie McGuire? So it's a TV show again from early 2000s, I'm guessing, where there's this the main character, Lizzie McGuire, played by Hilary Duff, and it's about her family, and it's like a sitcom. And there's funny stuff, and I love Lizzie McGuire. I used to like. I loved Hilary Duff. I even got bangs like Hilary. I'm a curly girl. I should not have gotten bangs like Hilary Duff, but I did. It was not a good look. They kind of flipped. Anyway, I used to like put my hands like she would put her hands. I got dressed like she did. I just loved Lizzie McGuire. Anyway, there's this one episode, and I looked it up before I started filming because I'm like, what's the episode called? Because I remember it vividly. And the episode of Lizzie McGuire is called Mom's Best Friend, and it's season two, episode three. And basically, from what I can remember from the episode, is for some reason, Lizzie McGuire decides to be more friends with her mom, like shopping, spending time together, talking. And as they start being more friends, and I think Lizzie at that time was like 15, 16, 14, 15, 16, something like that. Um, Her mom starts to disclose some of the difficulties she's experiencing. So she's talking about how her Lizzie's grandparents are having marital issues. She's talking about maybe financial struggles that the father is having. And while she's talking about that with Lizzie, Lizzie's cartoon character that like represents her thoughts is there being like, "Oh my God, what the heck? This is like way too much for me to process." Ah. And she starts like trying to avoid her mom so that she doesn't have to hear about these difficult adult situations. And then finally, like, they talk about it, and Lizzie's like, "This is too much for me. Like, I can't." And the mom was like, "You know, right? You're right. It's too much for you. We can wait before we're best friends, kind of thing, or we're close friends." Um, and they agree that they're going to keep that mother-daughter relationship, and it doesn't have to be a best friend relationship. And so I remember that episode so vividly because it's such a counter um, thought to the Gilmore Girls whole show. Basically, this one episode that I remember is such a because when I remember like Gilmore Girls, Lorelai Gilmore, the mom, I remember her like drinking lots of coffee, talking really fast. She's in love with Luke. She has difficulty with Laura with Rory sometimes. She's complains about her parents a lot. It's like a lot of that. But like when I think about Liz McGuire and Liz McGuire's mom, I remember one episode where her mom like painted the door multiple times because she was like, "What's the perfect color for this door?" Or like I remember like this really nice robe she was wearing that I bought like the same robe that's like with like clouds on it. It's really beautiful. Um, but like or like she was just funky. She always had like her hair done funky and all that, and had her glasses, and I just thought she was so cool. But like other than that, I really don't know. Like and like that's kind of I think that's kind of how it is more healthy. Not that we don't know our parent whatsoever, but that we know them in a way of with a boundary, right? And it's not about having strict boundaries of like, I'm the parent, you're the kid, no, no, no. But it's more of like having healthy boundaries. And like when I look into how we define a healthy boundary, because I want to give you um, so rigid boundaries where it's extremely strict and inflexible, leading to emotional distance, isolation, lack of support, or closeness between family members. That's another thing that I see in my client work sometimes where I'm the parent, you're the kid, give me your phone, go to bed, you're not allowed to go here, I'm tracking you. Like, there's like that kind of stuff. Like, I've seen that before. But a clear, healthy boundary is more balanced and firm, allowing people to feel close and connected while still keeping their own independent identity and privacy, right? This idea of privacy. In the same way that you're not going to share everything with your partner, and you don't have to. Like, it's the same way. And so is the healthy boundaries. And again, healthy boundaries are hard to understand if you've never been modeled them before, if you've never experienced them before. And so some of the work in therapy that you might do as a therapist or as a client is learning what the healthy boundary looks like and that it's actually really safe and that putting in those boundaries can make relationships actually better and that you deserve it because you have to care for yourself. And like a lot of the work that I do with my clients and setting boundaries and in recognizing this past and present experiences is helping them recognize that they actually have to put themselves first, right? So mothers need to put themselves first, and I believe they need to put themselves first before their own parents, before their partner, and yes, before their children. Because, when we care for ourselves, we're better able to care for our children. And some people will say, oh, that's a slippery slope because if you just care for yourself too much, then you're going to neglect your children. These are the type of women that I work with who do not neglect their children. If anything, they neglect themselves. And so just the idea of putting their needs first, even once in a while, is so meaningful to them when they've put everybody's needs before their own, their whole life, basically. So that's that. I'm wondering what you think about this episode, uh, the Gilmore Girl effect. Did you watch Gilmore Girls before? Were you a fan just like me? And are you noticing now how maybe not so healthy it was? And if you're a therapist, maybe you have experienced this therapeutic theme in sessions, and maybe having this language is helping you, will help you to better support your clients. So, anyway, that's it for today. I'll see you in the next one. I think I might talk about good girl conditioning in the next one or escapism. I'm not sure which one yet. Those are other themes that come up. I think I'm gonna like do a couple of episodes where I just talk about themes that come up in therapy that might be meaningful to you. So yeah, so that's the end of the episode. Thank you so much for listening or watching, wherever you're joining today. I wish you a beautiful day. Leave a comment wherever you're watching this or listening to this, and like, subscribe, do the things, and I will see you in the next episode. Keep living your authentic life.